les corps, entre les corps, avec.
Most of the time in English, we study writers like Shakespeare, writers like Salman Rushdie who are far away. And with Canadian literature and Quebec literature, the authors are much closer. They're alive, they live nearby, or sometimes on the other side of the country, but we can bring them into the classroom. And what it means is that rather than just receiving a text and studying it and thinking about it, we also have the author in dialogue with us. And so that can be very exciting for students to ask other questions about, especially about composition, about how the book came to be, what were the ideas, the grounds that were laid for the composition of the book. Chantal Neveu is an interdisciplinary artist who works in the medium of, mostly in the medium of poetry. She's interested in dialoguing with other artists and authors. She often composes on the edge of stages, of dance stages, theater stages, in conversation with other writers and so on. Chantal came to visit my class and not only talk about her work and take questions from the students, but also she did what would be called in French an atelier, or in English a workshop with the students.
I'm here to share the writing, the readings, poetry, the French language speaking and writing, and also the translation dynamic permission.
I'm teaching a class right now that is extremely unique in that for the first time it combines both French program and English program students, and they're each pursuing their own course. One is called Québec Poetry for the English side, and on the French side of things it's called La Poésie Québécoise. And they're both reading the books in their respective languages, and we're talking about them together, mostly in English, but also a little bit in French. And on the third hour of every week, we divide into language groups to look at the poems, and then we come back together to talk about them. And so it's a huge pleasure to have Chantal here as someone who speaks both languages and whose book exists in both languages, to talk about the composition, what it means to be a Quebec poet, the composition of the book in French, and then what it means to have it translated into English. And the students, of course, also have an opportunity to ask her about each of the respective books.
It was a real privilege because it was the first time to be in a class, in a group, with this bilingual dimension, this bilingual research in the same time.
You feel
A drop in pressure.
the love in your body.
It was a permission, it was a very cohabitation and a dynamic experiment stage to talk, to read, to hear also the both languages together.
So having an author like Chantal Neveu come to our classroom to perform a poetry reading for us and to involve us in a workshop as we did in this class was a real treat and a real pleasure to be a part of.
So of course I learned a lot from them, and also the enthusiasm, the possibility to listen also, not only to talk about the activity or the artistic project, but to hear their own motivation and desires, and also the vibration again between what we can do and what we don't do. And so I think university is that kind of laboratory. Yeah.